want to go back and watch this later, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a really important one. Okay. All right. So I'll start again and say we are now live streaming on YouTube, and this is a committee meeting of the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee, potentially the last such meeting of the 130th legislature. And so I will start by having our committee members introduce themselves, starting with Representative Matheson.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and I'm so sad that this is our last meeting. My name is Christy Matheson. I represent District 1, Kittery.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am Richard Evans. I represent House District 120, including the towns of Atkinson, Brownville, Dover, Foxcroft, Medford, Milo, Orneville Township, and Lakeview. Thank you.
Thanks, Representative Evans. Representative Quint, if you're able to unmute.
Hello, my name is Tracy Quint. I represent House District 144, and I'm very sad that I actually don't get to see you all in person for our last meeting, but look forward to seeing you all on Thursday.
Excellent. Representative Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Excuse me, my name is John Connor, and I represent part of Lewiston.
Representative Arford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am Representative Poppy Arford, and I serve District 49, the western part of Brunswick. And I want to thank both our chairs for their excellent leadership during the 130th legislative session.
Representative Bleier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Bleier. I represent District 22, which is Leamington, a part of Buxton Standish.
Representative Melorano.
Good morning, I'm Gina Melorano. I represent House District 62, and that's part of Auburn.
Representative Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is State Representative Joshua Morris. I represent the towns of Turner, Leeds, and Livermore.
And I am Heather Sanborn. I represent Senate District 28, which is half of Portland, half of, oh, I skipped Denise. I'm sorry, Denise. I still represent half of Portland and half of Westbrook, and then I'll go to my co-chair, Representative Tepler.
So this is the last time that I will have the opportunity to introduce myself as Denise Tepler, representing House District number 54, which is all of the terrific town of Topsom, which will now have a new number as a district and be divided into 2 districts because our beautiful town has grown. And it is also the last time I will introduce myself as Heather Sanborn's, Senator Sanborn's co-chair. So appreciate everybody being here, and I think that HCIFS is one of the best committees that in the legislature. Thank you.
All right, we are joined today by Edna Kayford and Colleen McCarthy-Reed, who keep the wheels turning and help keep us on the road. So we are going to do a couple of things today. The first one is that we are going to have a work session on the last bill that we have in our possession that we haven't voted yet. And LD number is going to pop up on my screen in a minute, or someone else can tell me what it is. It's 14 something.
1463.
1463. All right, so LD 1463 is a bill that we had a public hearing on last session and carried it over. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Representative Tepler, who is the sponsor of the bill, to give us an update on where we are.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I apologize for any background noise. I'm having some tree work done and it's hard to escape the chainsaw noise here. I would like to request that the committee vote this bill ought not to pass. It is a bill that deals with an important concern we have with the ACA, namely the family glitch. However, now is not the time to reinstate the fee on insurers to help solve this problem. I think that we'll have to be looking in the future at ways we can help those families that are in what's called the family glitch, which is a situation where if your employer even offers health insurance, regardless of how expensive it is, you cannot qualify for a subsidy on the ACA exchange. So that is a concern. Apparently, there are about 34,000 Maine families that fall into the glitch. And hopefully we will find a way in the next couple of years to solve this problem, or the federal government will do so since it was created by their rules in the first place. So thank you, but now is not the time. So I request and ought not to pass on this bill.
Is there any further discussion of the committee? And I'll just make a comment that we did hold this bill over in hopes that the Biden administration would close the family glitch loophole. And that's, I think, still a possibility that may happen in the coming months. But it has not occurred yet, but we've run out of time to work on this aspect at a state level. Any additional discussion? Okay, is there a motion? Representative Tepler,
I'll move ought not to pass.
is there a second? Seconded by Representative Arford. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Thank you. Senator Sanborn.
Yes.
Senator Sanborn, yes. Senator Brenner. Senator Stewart. Representative Tepler.
Yes.
Representative Tepler, yes. Representative Arford.
Yes.
Representative Arford, yes. Representative Blyer.
Yes.
Representative Blyer, yes. Representative Brooks. Representative Connor.
Yes.
Representative Connor, yes. Representative Evans.
Yes.
Representative Evans, yes. Representative Matheson.
Yes.
Representative Matheson, yes. Representative Malorano.
Yes.
Representative Malorano, yes. Representative Morse.
Yes.
Representative Morse, yes. Representative Quinn, yeah, I'll send her notice. 1, 2, 3. 9 members of the committee haven't voted in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Great, thank you, Edna. Okay, so that's the last vote, the last bill we needed to vote on, and the rest of our meeting this morning is going to be language review. And I think we have language for all of the bills that we have voted in the committee, except with the exception of some fiscal notes. So we'll be able to review those fiscal notes by email. Colleen will send us the email indicating the fiscal note information when she receives it from OFPR. And most of these bills may just have a no fiscal note needed or within existing resources of an OSR agency, that type of fiscal note. That's what we're anticipating for a lot of them. So just take a look at them when they come through your email, and be sure to let Denise and myself and Colleen know if you have any questions about any of them as they do come through. But that's how we'll handle the remainder of our work. So I'll turn it over to Colleen to go through the amendment review for the remaining bills.
Sure, thanks. There were 7 amendments that I sent out to you yesterday, as Senator Sanborn said, reflecting the committee's votes on the bills that you voted on last week. And I have one bill that you had previously seen the language that I did get the fiscal review on is included in this as well. So the first one is LD 1196. You had seen most of this language when you voted on the bill. last week, but talked about making 2 additional changes. One is shown in let's see. Oh, actually, this one, no additional changes to this one. I'm getting you mixed up with the other one, but no changes to Part A. There was one outstanding question from the that you'd asked of MHDO about whether or not you needed to make a corresponding change to the existing law related to primary care spending reporting, and MHDO responded back to me that thought that there was no need to make that additional statutory change since it's already included in their rule. So there were no additional changes made to Part A, which requires some additional gathering of data on behavioral healthcare spending and reporting of that data to the legislature by Maine Quality Forum with the data from MHDO. So that's Part A. And then with regard to Part B, these were the changes that you made with regard to credentialing. And during your discussion, you had talked about some of the requirements in the existing Rule 850 with regard to verification of credentialing information. And so based on your vote, I added this section here to the amendment, which would require the Bureau of Insurance to review the requirements in Rule Chapter 850 related to the verification of information on credentialing applications and determine whether changes can be made to the rule in order to improve the ability of carriers to meet the timeline that's set forth in the amendment, which is to make credentialing decisions within 60 days without impacting quality standards or accreditation standards. And then it also adds language that notwithstanding the existing law that requires changes to Rule 850 to be done through the major substantive rulemaking process, any amendments that the Bureau would make for this reason would be considered routine technical rules. So that is the amendment to LD 1196.
Committee should raise their hands at any point if they have questions for Colleen while we're doing language review. And if I don't see any hands, we're just going to move on to the next amendment.
Okay, great. This next one is LD 1266. This is the bill related to reporting with regard to dental plan medical loss ratio. You had seen the language of this amendment and previously approved it. What you hadn't seen was the final fiscal information, which has now been submitted, just showing that any additional costs to the department, the Bureau of Insurance, are expected to be minor and can be absorbed within their existing budgeted resources. So LD 1266 should be reported out soon and may even, well, I shouldn't say anything about being on your calendar since things are slowed down because of the State House being closed, but I expect it would be on the calendar next week when you come in for your session. Okay, I don't see any hands. I'll move on to the next one. This is LD 1331. This was the bill related to geographic area rating in individual and small group plans. The committee's vote at the last work session was to reduce the rating factor used by carriers for geographic area to 1.25 beginning January 1, 2024. The current law has a rating factor that may not exceed 1.5. So it makes the changes in both Section 1, which is for individual health plans, and Section 2 is small group health plans. And then in Section 3 of the language, it would require a report back by the Bureau of Insurance in December of 2023 that would take a look at what the differences in premium rates would be for this plan year under the existing law and the approved plan premium rates for plan year 2024 as a result of the legislation. It would also give the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee in the 131st legislature the ability to report out legislation. That's LD 1331. And I do think I see a hand from somebody.
Representative Bleier, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleen, just a clarification, is it a community rating of 1.5 or 1.25?
Under the existing law, it's 1.5, and what the bill would do, it would reduce it to 1.25, starting in January 1 of 2024.
Yeah, Representative Bleier, is that what, do you have a further question or you're all set? Okay.
All set.
Thank you. So moving on to the next one, this is LD 1636. This was the bill that related to reference rates based on Canadian pricing of prescription drugs. The amendment struck and replaced the original bill and replaced it with essentially a reporting requirement. So I suggested a change in the title. I also reallocated the provisions to within the Maine Health Data Organization because they're the ones who are going to be directed to complete the reporting on international reference rate pricing. Under the provisions of the amendment, it would require MHDO to identify the 100 most costly prescription drugs and the 100 most utilized drugs in the state using their all payer claims database. For the most recent or the most current 12-month period, they would identify the manufacturers of those drugs and the average wholesale cost for each drug. The language would require MHDO, to the extent possible, working with the Maine Prescription Drug Affordability Board to determine the reference rate for each of those drugs by comparing the wholesale acquisition costs to the costs of designated Canadian provinces, Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and Alberta. And then it describes how the reference rate would be calculated. One of the issues, and then the MHDO would determine what the potential savings could be to Maine if those drugs were subject to that referenced rate. One of the things that the committee talked about as part of your discussion was the issue about whether certain of these drugs are subsidized by the Canadian government. So this language in Part D, paragraph D here has been added so that as part of the reporting, to the extent possible, MHDO would identify whether the cost of a drug is subsidized by the Canadian government. And then lastly, with regard to reporting, beginning in January of 2023 and annually thereafter, MHDO would produce and post on its website an annual report with this information. They'd be required to submit the report to the Office of Affordable Healthcare, the Prescription Drug Affordability Board, and the HCIFS committee. The committee would then have authority to report out legislation based on any of these annual reports during the session in which the report is submitted. So the original proposal that you had talked about when you reviewed it at your work session only authorized the legislature to report out a bill after the first annual report. This amendment changes that to give the authority to the legislature on an ongoing basis. So that's LD 1636. I don't see any hands. I guess I'll move on to the next one, which is LD 1822. This is the bill with regard to cost sharing and making cost sharing for behavioral health office visits and primary care office visits the same. At your amendment, you talked about the differences between individual and small group plans and large group plans. So as you voted, I separated those out into two different sections. So section 2 is the section that tracks the current law with regard to cost sharing and also with the treatment of these plans with regard to counting the copays toward the deductible. So that's section 2. And then there's a separate additional section that relates to the large group health plans that takes out that language relating to counting copay amounts toward the deductible. The second part of the legislation is the language related to compliance and reporting on mental health parity. And you had, as part of your motion, wanted to add language providing that any reporting done by carriers to the superintendent of insurance would be confidential to the extent that information was proprietary or trade secret information, and that's the language that's added here. Whoops. So it would say that information submitted by a carrier to the superintendent is public information, and it cross-references the existing provision of the insurance code with regard to records of the Bureau of Insurance, except for information that a carrier requests be designated as confidential, and the superintendent has determined is proprietary information. And then it defines proprietary information as information that's a trade secret or business or financial information, the disclosure of which would impair the competitive position of a carrier or would result in significant detriment to a carrier if the information were made available to the public. And that definition of proprietary information is taken from other provisions of current law. So it's something that should be familiar. So that's the proposed section related to confidentiality, to try to narrow it to that information that would be determined proprietary. And then the second change was repealing or providing a sunset of 5 years on the provision. So April 30th, 2028. And April 30th, I picked April 30th because April 30th is the reporting deadline. So under the provisions of the section. So that's LD 1822. I don't think I see any hands. I'll move on to LD 1910. This is the bill related to children's mental health, evidence-based practices. Actually, I don't think I made any changes to the amendment that the committee saw and voted on at your prior work session. You'll recall that you voted to remove any references to the determination of medical necessity being done by the provider to sort of allow a determination of medical necessity to be done by carriers as well. So that language has been removed and added in here in the definition of what evidence-based practices is at the request of the Maine Association of Health Plans. I did add in this language where you list the clearinghouses and identify those clearinghouses, added this language, including but not limited to. So carriers could include other clearinghouses or organizations, scientifically, peer-reviewed scientific journals to make a determination of what an evidence-based practice would be. So that there are several sections of the bill that repeat the same language. So I added this including but not limited to language throughout the bill. Okay. And then the last one is LD 1954. This was the only one of the ones voted last week that was a divided report. So there are two amendments for you to review here. The first is the majority report. It maintains all of the language of the original bill, but just would add these 3 sections. Section 5 just makes the requirements applicable to policies and contracts issued or renewed on or after January 1 of 2023. Section 6 adds an unallocated language section that says the bill is being enacted without a review and evaluation by the Bureau of Insurance pursuant to the process for review of proposed mandated health benefits. And then Section 7 adds a statement that the requirements of the Act are not in addition to the state's essential health benefits package that would require a deferral of costs. Otherwise, it maintains all the sections that were included in the original bill without change. So that's the majority report on LD 1954. And then the minority report would strike and replace the bill with a resolve directing the Bureau of Insurance to evaluate the proposal pursuant to the mandated health benefit process in statute, section 2752. They would review and evaluate a mandate that would require carriers to provide coverage for all contraceptive drugs without cost sharing as proposed in the bill, report back to the HCIFS committee in January of 2023, and then it would give the committee at that time the authority to report out a bill. So that's LD 1954's minority report. So those were all of the ones that I had for you. I think that, as Senator Sanborn said earlier, that means you've seen all of the language of the amendments on bills that you voted. What you haven't seen for all of them is the final fiscal information, and hopefully we'll start to see those soon, and I'll be able to share them with you electronically. And as Senator Sanborn said, if there are any concerns about the fiscal information, let her or I know. Typically what I do when I send it out is I'll say, here's the fiscal note. If you have any concerns, let me know by a certain time. I'll give you some time to review it. And if I don't hear from anybody, then we will report the bill out with the approval of the chairs. That's usually how we do it, and that seems to work well, or has worked well in the past. Hopefully that'll continue to work for everybody moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Colleen, and thanks for getting all of that work done in time for today. That's a lot of production to get through, and it's nice to be able to do all of our language review in our committee meetings. We haven't always been able to accomplish that, so this is really exciting, and I think our team worked together incredibly well this year. Really proud of the work we've done over the last 2 years on Zoom and managing the technology and managing to work together very collegially, even though we haven't seen each other much in person. I think I've only spoken a few words to Representative Connor in person in the halls, and Representative Quinton and I have not spent much time together in person either. So we do hope to get together in Portland at my business, hopefully after we adjourn, and I'll send around a doodle poll to the members of the committee and our staff to find out what timing would work best for that for everyone, and we'll try and get as many people as we can together so that we can enjoy our company and celebrate all of the good work that we did together. And I guess with that, Representative Tepler has some words. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say that I'm very proud of the work this committee has done. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that the majority, vast majority actually, like 85% of our work is unanimous. And that we work together to reach an outcome that's good for the Maine people. I've been in other committees where there's not a lot of that going on, and I really appreciate that we've been able to do that. And I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be co-chair of this committee for 4 years now. I've really learned a lot, and maybe I'll get a chance to use it in the future as well for the good of Maine people. So thanks everybody for your good work and for the fact that we've been able to get it together and do a lot of unanimous work.
Agreed. Anybody else want to say anything? All right. Representative Matheson?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank everybody on the committee. As a new legislator, it's been a really enjoyable experience. I wish I had seen more of you in person other than just quickly in the hallways, but I want to especially thank the chairs for their assistance in helping us understand and navigate this complicated information in this committee. And I wanted to say I will miss those that are terming out and those that are not returning.
Thanks. All right. Great. Well, with that, everybody, we will hopefully see you in person in the State House on Thursday, assuming that the floods are all cleaned up by then, but it sounds like they should be. So we'll see you then, and we'll get together sometime soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Someday we'll sit together in the circle.